It's really a full-time job just to keep up with everything that's going on. The move, the counter move, the counter to the counter move, the double cross and the triple cross. Gotta keep up with all of it all the time. And there's really 2 primary areas. There's the domestic economic issues, and then there's the geopolitical foreign policy issues, but actually they're interrelated because the formation of our political economy is globalist. President Trump is changing us from a globalist political economy to a mixed economy where we have trade, but we have a greater focus on our national financial outcomes for the country and for the individual people of the country. And then that's related to our globalist foreign policy, where we're going to go anywhere, anytime to help anybody to maintain democracy, even if that means we're at war forever, a forever war. How convenient. See, these two things are related. That's why they call it political economy. Let's listen to some of President Trump's comments about these issues. This first clip, please.
Stone cold broke, and now they have a lot of money. And that's going to be the next thing you'll be talking about is Iran. What's going to happen with Iran? And there'll be some interesting days ahead. That's all I can tell you. You know, we're down to final strokes with Iran. That's going to be an interesting time. And we'll see what happens. But we're down to the final moments. We're at final moments. Can't let them have a nuclear weapon. I think that I would have had a deal within 1 month after the rigged election of 2020. They were all set to make a deal. And then when I lost, they saw this person who's a stupid person, very stupid person. And they said, let's not make a deal. And they were right. He took the sanctions off. They became rich under Biden. They went from having no money to having $300 billion. All in a short period. It's oil. Oil builds up fast. It's a nice living if you have a nice oil well. And they do. They have a lot of nice oil wells, right? So anyway, it's going to be a big thing. It's an interesting time in the history of the world, but we have a situation with Iran that something's going to happen very soon, very, very soon. You'll be talking about that pretty soon, I guess, and hopefully we can have a peace deal. You know, I'm not speaking out of strength or weakness. I'm just saying I'd rather see a peace deal than the other, but the other will solve the problem.
Well, that's rather bone chilling. President Trump making it very clear. They called it the final strokes. We're down to the final strokes on Iran. Can't let them have a nuclear weapon. Well, Bibi Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, has been saying Iran's going to get a nuclear weapon tomorrow for, I don't know, like 30 years. So we're down to the final strokes. Final strokes. And what President Trump is saying is he'd like to have a peace deal. But if you can't have a peace deal, they're not getting the nuclear weapon. And he's letting us know. It's just like the thing with the tariffs. He's letting people know. President Trump is a change agent. He is not a status quo politician. We've been electing status quo politicians my entire adult life. What is the status quo? It's bipartisanship. It's the center. It's what the political class that's erected by the Uni Party agree about. I find it very disagreeable. I don't agree with that $37 trillion of debt and that open border and that endless war. I don't agree with that. That is precisely why I got into the broadcast business, to start to reveal the search for truth about how do we get in this mess. That's what we do on the Professor Penn podcast. We work on this every day, 7 days a week, and we work on it politically. And here's President Trump telegraphing to the American people that change is going to come. Well, let's look at the deep issue. The deep issue is China. China is the real existential threat to the United States of America. China is in a alliance called the Iron Triangle because it can never be broken with Russia and Iran. And President Trump, in his desire to be a change agent, is going to break that triangle. First of all, he's trying to bring the Russian Federation back into the community of nations by ending the war with Ukraine. And he has even said that Ukraine caused the war. He is doing everything he can to signal to the American people and to the people of the world that Russia is also an indispensable nation. We're not living in a unipolar world. Marco Rubio, our Secretary of State, has said we live in a multipolar world. Those are the words that the neocons that have dominated this government since, oh, I don't know, Bill Clinton, have always resisted multipolarity. But President Trump, a business realist, recognizes that China and Russia are players, but he doesn't want them teamed up against us. And he doesn't want Iran to continue to grow in power and influence. So he's telling the Iranians, stand down, boys, or we're going to let slip the dogs of war. He's telling the Russians, hey, stand down, boys, let's make a peace deal. And the Chinese are just sitting there bearing the brunt of tariffs. Let's listen to some more President Trump clips.
Tough, but I got along well with Putin. And because I got along well, oh, they say, oh, he's so. Nobody's ever been, Putin would be the first to say it. Nobody's been tougher than Trump. And Biden hasn't been tough. Biden's done nothing. He was a weak, pathetic man.
So is there anything else you want to say to the critics who say you chose a side in the Ukraine-Russia story, and that's Russia? Because, you know, you called Zelensky a dictator and you had the fight.
Nobody has been tougher on Russia than Donald Trump. Nobody. And they know that. They know that. Just look at the things I just told you. The pipeline, I stopped it. The biggest job they've ever done was the pipeline, Nord Stream 2. Nobody ever heard of it until I came along. They were building it happily. They were going to supply Germany and everybody else all over Europe. And what did I do? I stopped it.
So President Trump trying to maintain some balance between bringing the Russians back into the community of nations and being accused of being a Russian sympathizer. His words, nobody's ever been tougher on Russia than Donald Trump. And actually, if you look back at the history of things, there are some facts that seem to support that argument. What Donald Trump is running into here now, and he's going to run into it domestically, he's going to run into it geopolitically on the international stage. Donald Trump has a very clear idea about what he's trying to accomplish. There's a lot of people that are going to have their money cut off if the change agent, President Trump, succeeds in his goal of making America financially solvent, of making America no longer dependent, of making America number one, numero uno. President Trump has no desire to make any concessions for some kind of vision of global governance or global economy, which has been the style of our leadership going back to 1946. Our leadership, and heavily influenced by PhDs that come out of our elite academic institutions like Columbia University, where they are taught an Atlanticist, globalist ideology, and then they come into government and they spend their careers trying to implement that Atlanticist, globalist ideology. That's what has brought us to this moment of crisis that we find ourselves in. Well, President Trump is changing everything. And we the people, we know where the road we are on is going to take us. We know it's going to take us at the very least to poverty and an endless war. We know it. And our country, our economy is addicted like a heroin addict to government dependency, government at war. We're addicted to this. So President Trump comes in as a change agent and he's trying to thread the needle. He's trying to do the near impossible. He's trying to balance all these different centers of power who are resisting his vision while implementing his vision, while keeping the economy in the center of the road and the world in the center of the road. Wow, that's a magic trick. If he can pull that off, and I don't mean magic like a sleight of hand, I mean that, well, magic's the wrong word. That would be a blessing if we was able to pull this off, a blessing.